Hello.
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 Hello. Welcome to the Bears, Birds, and Brews podcast. This is a show about the Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons, and craft beer. My name is Asif Lakhani. My co-host is,
Nabil Alani.
our producer is.
Another Wazir.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk a lot of Last Dance, a little bit of NFL moving and shaking. We got baseball. Baseball is coming back. Now, who knows where else we're going to go with this episode, but first things first, we're all drinking today, although we're not drinking beer. Each of us have something different in our hands, which is kind of unique. And it's not a different beer. I'll go first. I'm drinking kombucha. So I got some local kombucha, 2 for $5 at your local grocery store if you can find it on sale like I did. Then this is Elite Beet. So beet and ginger kombucha is what I'll be drinking today. Nabil, what are you working with?
I have a Nitro Cold Brew. It's Lucky Jack. Wait, where's my camera? There it is.
It is.
I am not doing this very well. There we go. Lucky Jack Nitro Cold Brew. Yeah, got it in this little 3-tap.
The only Jack you are having for this month.
Yep, that's the only Jack.
So technically, he is the lucky Jack.
There you go. And now that has soda, some good old ginger ale.
Can't go wrong. Canada Dry.
You can go wrong. Hell yeah. Well, this beet is very strong. So if I make some weird faces on the YouTube edition of the show, you're in for a treat because it's definitely very hard and bitter. But I like it's good for people. So cheers.
I was gonna say that
What did
doesn't
you say,
sound that
Nabil?
great.
Hell yeah.
All right. Started with some NFL offseason. Both teams, there's been some signings by the Falcons and the Bears. Let's start with the Bears. We'll keep the trend from last week's episode. Bears have signed Ted Ginn to a 1-year deal and Tyshawn Gibson. Nab, thoughts?
There you go.
And
We got some technical difficulties on that real fast.
I love it. Love it. We are our
There you go.
first virtual.
Well, I'll tell you Nabil thinks, I think. I don't know what he thinks, actually. Natalie, what do you think?
The Ted Ginn signing, I think it's a hit or miss. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Asif, but Ted Ginn used to play. Ted Ginn has had a lot of drop passes in the past.
Oh, yeah.
He was
The king of the drop pass in the NFL.
Yeah. And so now my only concern is if our quarterback does manage to throw it in his direction, then, it's unlikely he's going to catch it. But maybe, who knows, maybe that'll change.
Well, I mean, you think this could be the reincarnation of Devin Hester possibly with the kick returns? Because he is pretty fast.
He's pretty quick. I don't think he's been doing kick returns for a while, maybe punt returns. But then we have our punt returner and Cohen, who's been lighting it up. So I don't see taking it away from him and giving it to Ted Ginn.
Yeah.
But
I think Ginn is at least a good pickup. I mean, it's somebody who has experience with the NFL, so you can learn the system and get acclimated pretty quickly. Probably doesn't need to go through a lot of the strength and conditioning program because as we've talked about in the COVID era, right? You bring in new guys in, you have less of a chance to work with them. But at least if you get somewhat of an established veteran presence in there, you're moving a couple of steps ahead than if you were to just get somebody who's completely new, an undrafted free agent, if you will.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, it's interesting that you talk about Ted Ginn being big with the drop passes. He is actually, John Ross was actually cut by the Bengals last week. And he had a lot of drop passes too. He actually had 8 drop passes last year, which tied for the most in the league is what I saw. And that's crazy to think about when you drop 8 passes and you get cut.
Yeah.
So you talk about a guy like Ted Ginn, who I've seen drop touchdowns, like in his hands, drop touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
for somebody who dropped 8 passes in John Ross last year to get cut. And now you're bringing in a guy like Ted Ginn, who's known for his drop passes. I mean, it's a gamble, but again, with the COVID era, you got somebody who can do the conditioning and the strength and pick up the playbook relatively easier than an undrafted free agent. I mean, it's all for depth at this point. You don't know what's going to happen, but,
100%, I agree. Nabil, your thoughts on Ted Ginn?
That is a depth signing. I don't know if it's going to be. It's not. I don't think he's going to be the make it or break it guy. I mean, he's complete speed, but at the same time, like it's Ted Ginn. I mean, he only has the speed. He'll help in special teams. I see it as like a better Cordell Patterson receiver wise, but not as good special teams wise. I'm just wondering what's going to happen with like the other wide receivers on the team, like Javon Wims. Riley Ridley is more than likely still going to stay on the roster. But Javon Wims may get cut now, and he was like a training camp like standout for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's all going to be based off of what Nick Foles does with the new wide receivers.
Okay, Interesting statement. And then Tayshaun Gibson.
Deshaun Gibson, I think that's going to be a difference maker on the team. I mean, he can play both free and strong safety. Last year, we saw Eddie Jackson take a step back, but that was more because he had to play strong safety instead of free safety because HaHa can't play the strong safety. He's not an in-the-box safety. He can't do it. So having Deshaun Gibson now who can play both free and strong will not only give an option to help out to let Eddie Jackson roam around and play free safety, but Gibson can also play in the box, go back in a cover 2 if needed, and we can even have depth if we do have any injuries in the secondary. Deshaun Gibson can play free safety. Deshaun Gibson can play nickelback. He's a very versatile defensive back. So I think that's a great signing. And for 1 year, $3 million, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, and then, but where did he come from before signing with Chicago?
So last year he was on Houston. Before Houston, he was on the Browns. On the Browns, he was a free safety, and he made a Pro Bowl as a free safety a couple of times. And then he went from the Browns to Jacksonville to Houston. He's been kind of jumping around places now, but that's not something I'm really concerned about. He's not gonna have to be the main guy.
I was just wondering. I mean, the name sounds a little bit familiar, but it's good to know that. I mean, Houston, Jacksonville, and Cleveland are, I guess, nowadays what you consider maybe strong defenses or strong defensive teams. Houston obviously has Deshaun Watson, but their defense is sick. Jacksonville's defense is sick, and Cleveland's defense is pretty good too. So, I mean, it fits right in with that theme, if you will, for him.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, sorry, one thing I wanted to add, Nabil, you said that you think the Bears might have the best secondary in the league now, potentially.
I think so. I mean, it's gonna be based off of the rookie we got, obviously. I mean, if he can stay healthy and if he can live up to his draft position, I mean, some people thought he was a first round pick potential. So, if he can play to the level of Prince Amukamara, if Kyle Fuller stays on his level, if Eddie Jackson can bounce back to 2 years ago, and if Deshaun Gibson can just play, a good in-the-box safety, we have, a great secondary. Buster Screen is a very good nickel corner, and we have a great front seven. I mean, Robert Quinn, Khalil Mack, that's going to make your secondary better. The less time a quarterback has, the better your secondary is going to look. So just having a great front seven makes your secondary better on its own.
Absolutely. Dig it. And then in other Bears news, we have the Bears did not pick up Mitch's fifth-year option, which was, I guess, no surprise to any of us. I guess we talked about it, but any thoughts, Bill? You're okay with that?
I'm happy that I picked up his fifth-year option. I mean, we still have control over him for 2 years with the franchise tag. At this point, if you're going to pick up the fifth-year option, I feel like, you get an extra year of control. But is it really worth him getting hurt and owing him $24 million? I don't think it is. At this point, we should just go ahead. If somehow he balls out next year, throws 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, then yeah, pay him. Or don't even pay him, franchise him. Make him prove it again.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to pick up the 50-year option, because a franchise tag for Dak this year is what, $26 million, right?
About that, yeah.
Yeah, the 50-year option is going to be $24 million for Mitch. So if you franchise him, it's going to be what, $28 million maybe. So I'll do the $4 million more. And hey, at this point, Mitch needs to prove himself. So 50-year option, I don't think it's a good move to do it. Yeah.
Nice. Then on to the Falcons, and the Falcons traded a future.
Oh wait, one question. While I dropped off, did we talk Andy Dalton?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Dalton.
Okay, cool. We talked Falcons then.
I was waiting for that. I wanted to hear the rant on that. I want to make sure everyone heard the rant. That one.
Gotcha.
With the Falcons, however, they've traded their 7th-round pick for another former first-round pick from the Dolphins, Charles Harris. Asif, your thoughts on that signing?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like for a long time, Thomas Dimitroff has been known as somewhat of a math guru for the way he can shuffle numbers around and, the way that he can bring pieces in, and he makes big-time signings. And I think that this is a great trade and great deal for Atlanta because they gave up a 7th-round pick. So essentially they gave up nobody for somebody who's been playing like a nobody right now, but theoretically first-round talent. This kid went to Mizzou, which is my alma mater. Ironically enough, I don't remember him much at Mizzou. I guess at that point, but I know that he did get 2 sacks against Georgia in the game that they went up to Columbia on Jacob Eason. He got 2 sacks. So, I mean, I would like to think that, hey, 7th-rounder for a first round who hasn't played up to his potential, I would think most GMs, most fans are willing to make that move 9 times out of 10. Just what's the worst that could happen? You lose a 7th-round pick, okay? What are you going to do with your 7th-round pick anyway? Special teams guy, practice squad guy, he probably doesn't even make the team. I take my chances, and this guy plays a position that Atlanta desperately needs. Guys like Jack Crawford not around anymore, so you need rotational players to come in there. And if at best all he can do is fill in some rotational spots and do it well, then why not? And then kind of like Mitch Trubisky is going to have to do to prove himself. This guy's playing for a contract. It's not like he's set, He just got let go by the team that drafted him because they were disappointed in him. He has a second opportunity. If he plays well, then he can have a long career. And if he doesn't, then that's it. So I think he's going to come in highly motivated. And I think the change in scenery playing for a guy like Dan Quinn is going to help, 1. But then 2, playing for a team that has the potential to make the playoffs. I mean, it usually brings out the best in guys as well. So, and there's a connection that I'll make to Charles Harris later on in the episode as it pertains to The Last Dance and the character in The Last Dance, but we'll get there. But for the most part, as a Falcons fan, I think this draft is maybe, at least on paper right now, I would say one of the better ones we've had in the last couple of years, just because a lot of good value, not giving up much, if anything. And that also includes the free agency. So this summer, you got Hayden Hurst, Todd Gurley, Dante Fowler, all your draft picks, another first rounder for a 7th-rounder. I mean, I think the Falcons are in pretty good shape going into next year. And hopefully, again, they're expected to be a playoff team. And now they have pieces and guys who are going to be motivated to play like that and deliver. So I like it.
Nice. I'm glad. It's nice to hear a happy Falcons fan, Asif.
It's the probiotics in this kombucha. That's what it is.
It's been a while.
Right.
In the bill, as you mentioned, there was another splash signing. Andy Dalton sadly got cut from the Bengals, which, again, we all saw coming. And he was almost immediately signed by the Cowboys on a 1-year, $7 million deal, to which you were obviously pissed off. Why are you so angry, Nab?
Well, it's not that I'm angry. It's that the Bears just did what the Bears always do. They always rush into it when they don't have to. It's like you didn't have to go ahead and get Nick Foles the third day of free agency. You could have waited. You could have let the market play out. I mean, Andy Dalton, you know he was going to get cut. Cam Newton, you know he was going to get cut. If Nick Foles didn't get cut, you still could have traded for him after the draft. After the draft, I would rather give a fourth-round pick next year than a fourth-round pick this year. You know? I don't think the price tag's going to go up for Nick Foles. I really don't. And I get the whole thing with COVID. Like, okay, you want someone familiar with the offense and everything. That's where you got Nick Foles. Cool. What's the difference of getting Nick Foles versus a month ago versus today? Not that much of a difference. It's not like Nick Foles knows the offense 10 times more.
Or he's in there now. I mean, he's in there.
But you could. But the thing is, I would have rather had Andy Dalton plus my fourth-round pick for $3 million that could turn into $7 million if he reaches incentives versus Nick Foles minus my fourth-round pick for $24 million guaranteed. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe we could have gotten Cam Newton. Maybe we could have gotten Cam Newton and Andy Dalton. I don't know. You know, the more quarterbacks, more better at this point. Just throw darts against the wall. They just did Bear stuff where they rushed into a quarterback. They did the same thing with Mike Glennon. They negotiated against themselves and somehow gave Mike Glennon, I don't know, 18, 27 million when Mike Glennon doesn't even deserve $5, even $1 million. I don't know. Mike Glennon is garbage. But whatever. I mean,
to your point, Andy Dalton or Cam Newton could have been more of a long-term option too than Nick Foles, right? In theory.
I think all three are equal long-term options. Like Andy Dalton isn't young. Cam Newton might be older in football years than Nick Foles is just because of mileage. And Nick Foles knows the offense the best between those three. So I'm not saying one would have been a better fit or a better quarterback next year than the other. It's just I would rather go with a cheaper option, or I'd rather go with whatever didn't cost me a draft pick.
Yeah. So more prudent, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's my TED Talk, you know.
I was excited for that. Austin, do you have any thoughts on the Cowboys signing Dalton or Dalton being cut? I mean, we knew that was going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, so they said that I believe it was Ursula who said that it would have cost Cincinnati $17 million to keep him on the payroll, which is $17 million for a backup is a lot of money, you know, and so I can see why they would let him go. I'm happy to see that he has another team. I would have liked to see him go somewhere and be a starter, and I know that he doesn't necessarily have the option to make that call, and there aren't any teams looking for a starting quarterback right now anyway. I mean, after the draft, you've got to figure it out. So I don't think that he would have been able to be a starter, maybe unless Chicago had waited and that was an option. However, I think it's great. I mean, he went to TCU, you know, so I think it's great that he's gone back to Texas where he's from. I think that's awesome. It's weird because if I'm Dak Prescott too, I think it's also, if you're the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, you're trying to create some competition internally because, you know, Dak Prescott is on his franchise tag deal too. So now it's like, okay, man, you really have to play. Whereas in the last couple of years, he kind of had that job secure, but now there is somebody who's legitimately able to take it from him and keep it.
Bold prediction. Andy Dalton will be traded before the trade deadline next year. Bold prediction.
But is he going to get traded without having played any?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Some quarterback's going to go down, and some teams going to have a good defense, and they're going to be like, look, we need a cheap option at quarterback, and we need someone to replace our quarterback. And Andy Dalton only costing $3 million. That's the easiest contract to move in the league.
Yeah, for sure. And some teams will take it, and I guess it also depends on, too, what's going to happen with Cam Newton. Is he going to have a job? I know Alex Smith is trying to make a comeback. Maybe too soon for that.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Project 11 yet. I heard it's very awesome, very, very deep in Alex Smith's injury and everything. But from everything saying that, what everyone's saying, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play football again.
Interesting. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Andy Dalton potentially being traded, you heard it here first on Bears, Birds, and Brews, like potentially 7 to 8 months in advance.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
God knows when.
I would like to see him do well.
Yeah, of course, 100%.
One thing I'll say about Andy Dalton, though, is they talked about him being cut when the news broke. You know, I just happened to be watching TV when it happened. And 2 of the first 3 highlights they showed were Andy Dalton against the Falcons. So the guy still got some talent, you know. If you're a Falcons fan and you forgot, which I know you didn't, it's Andy Dalton threw a game-winning touchdown pass with literally 1 second left on the clock to A.J. Green in Atlanta a couple years ago. Probably the best highlight of the last like 2-3 years of his career, honestly. And so, of course, ESPN decided to lead with that, would go with that one third. And the first one they had was another touchdown from that game that he threw. So clearly the guy still got it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll go to an NFC South team. You know, who knows?
Who knows?
And we got enough quarterbacks down here.
Moving.
Oh, yeah. We also, Jameis Winston did go to the Saints, so another quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That was a weird signing. I don't know what they're doing there, but.
Oh, I think that's a great signing.
I agree. I mean, he familiar with the Saints, you know, playing them enough, so kind of knowing how it works down there. But then also, too, it keeps him out of Tampa. If something happens with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians needs somebody to come back in and keep the run going, well, you can't get Jameis Winston anymore. So I think it's playing defense by playing offense by the Saints, if you will. I think that's part of it. I don't think that's the only reason, but I think I'm with it. I think it's a good move by New Orleans.
Makes sense. All right, moving on to the Last Dance, the thing we've been waiting to talk about. I think I'm gonna let Asif you saw Kobe again. How was that?
Yeah, man. You know, Kobe was tough. I you know, like when they showed the previews, I was not ready for the emotional roller coaster that I thought I was going to go on. But fortunately, in watching it yesterday, it was very quick and painless, kind of like a flu shot, if you will. It just like stings a little bit and then it goes away, and it sticks with you. But it didn't. Yeah, it was a lot better than I thought it would be from the emotional standpoint for me. It was great to see Jordan talking about Kobe in the locker room before the game. And I think what happened is he probably thought, okay, Kobe is trying to come take my spot. And then the second that they got out there and started running and he saw him playing, he was like, I like this kid a lot, you know? And I think probably to Jordan knowing that, hey, this is my last dance and I'm done after this. You know, what is the league going to look like? Whose hands is it going to go into? And I think when he saw Kobe at the All-Star game, he's probably like, okay, I can walk away now because I know the game is in good hands. And I honestly think that maybe that's what he felt that night. So that was my take.
So just a little background on the Kobe interview. So they actually finished filming the Kobe interview 10 days before he passed away. So
I wish there was more of that interview. I think I don't think they showed much. I wish there was more.
So every week I listen to Waddle and Sylvie, and they have the director of the Last Dance on, and they have a bunch of stuff they didn't use. So there probably is a lot more to that interview than what's on there, because he was saying like the hardest part about making The Last Dance was getting everything into a 50-minute episode, because he was like, it's not like a book where, you know, I can have 150 pages, but I can have a chapter be 30 and a different chapter be 40. Every chapter has to be 50 minutes. So he was like, he has so much more extra stuff that he wasn't able to use. So I'm not saying there may be an extra episode, like a hidden episode 11 or something, but I'm saying there might be. You know, like Tiger King episode 13. Well, it might be The Last Dance episode 11, like 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Heard it here second.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Kobe was pretty good. You know, it was great to see these highlights and still to see Jordan dominating in '98 like he did, is really fascinating. Which I guess is a good segue into Jordan motivation.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
dude,
talk about
he would
that.
get motivated by anything. Like,
Yeah.
I swear to God, if Jerry Krause was eating a sandwich, he would hate that sandwich.
Oh yeah.
Like, anything Jerry Krause liked, he would find a way to hate it. And like, it's just crazy. The Tony Kukoc stuff where, Pippen and Jordan just basically demolished Kukoc's first game in the Olympics. And then after that, Kukoc did ball out the next game. But like, anything Jerry Krause looks at, Jordan just fucking hates. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Actually, I'm happy you brought that on. But it was really interesting to see that theme come back because it seemed like in episodes 3 and 4, the Jerry Krause thing kind of went away. Even though we knew like episode 1, that was like the foundation of everything, and to see it come back was really interesting. I also, to some degree, like I guess there was a slightly political moment with some of the ad campaigns or the campaign down in North Carolina. I mean, to some degree, it's like Jordan and Pippen at that age when this was all happening were like in their 20s, like in their early to late 20s. I mean, they were kids. They're like not much older than we are right now, if they were even this old in some cases. And so I don't necessarily think you can blame them for being upset with the GM because they're kids. They didn't know better. You know what I mean? If it was like Phil Jackson, I think had a much better understanding because he was the adult in that situation. And I think you can tell, even though Phil Jackson is the one who got shafted the most by Jerry Krause, or arguably Scottie Pippen. But again, Pippen was younger. Phil Jackson being much older and being an adult, it was just like, look, I mean, this is life. This is how it works. But of course, you're going to expect younger people to take things more personally,
Yeah.
100%. And I think I really enjoyed watching like the background on how the Dream Team came together. The original Dream Team was put together and why they were assembled. I think it was really nice to see that. I do feel bad for Isaiah Thomas getting snubbed on it, but at the end of the day,
Why?
he wasn't there. I mean, he was a star player at the time. I think he deserved the spot. I understand why he didn't get it. Nobody liked him, but it makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with Nabil on this because even if you ask the guys, like they asked Charles Barkley and they talked to some of the other people yesterday, or they asked Charles Barkley yesterday, they didn't need Isaiah Thomas on that team. I mean, they won without him, Had they would have lost, it would have been like, oh, yeah, maybe we should have had Isaiah. Dude, they flew without him and breezed without him, no problem,
I mean, they didn't need half the players on that team, to be honest.
Well, and he even said, like, at that point, Larry Bird was on the back slope of his career, and he was playing injured. For Larry Bird, it was more just like an honor and a recognition thing. And so it's like, yeah, they didn't need half the players on the team. And they literally could have gone out there with Pippen, Magic, Jordan, Barkley, and whoever else.
I think Magic was retired, too, at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they could have gone out there with those guys, like just 5 or 6 people, and done it. And I mean, even though they didn't get Isaiah Thomas, they did get Chuck Daly, who was the Pistons head coach for Isaiah Thomas. So it's not like the Pistons got snubbed entirely. I mean, Chuck Daly is the one who took them to the gold medal, and he did get all those guys to work together. And he definitely represented the Bad Boys. I mean, that was his.
If I remember the Dream Team documentary, the reason why Chuck Daly was able to get Jordan is because Jordan knew that since Chuck Daly was the coach, they would be able to play golf every day because Chuck Daly would want to play golf every day. So that was one reason why Chuck Daly was fine with Jordan because him and Jordan just played golf every day.
Makes sense. The one thing I want to see in this documentary, like addressed at some point, is where did Jordan's obsession with golf come from? Like, when did he start loving golf or start playing golf, or what is the background behind that? Like,
I don't know if that's going to come up, but it may. But I think because we're already into the point where he's deep into golf on even in the past and in the present. Well, present. in '98, and whenever they flash back, he's still playing golf. So, because we were in his gambling, and a nice segue, in his gambling part where he was losing money playing golf. So I don't think they're going to talk about why he likes golf so much, but it's probably going back to his motivation.
Been mentioned in like one of the earlier episodes. Sorry, but I think it might have briefly been mentioned in one of the earlier episodes. But it's funny that both of you bring up golf because obviously that got him into some trouble as well. Yeah. With the gambling thing. And again, you talk about Jordan using motivation and finding anything to motivate him. And it seemed like the scandal around him, which is what it does for most guys, is, if there's a scandal or the outside noise, you block it out and you perform. But I think for Jordan, because he was such a mega icon already, like it's pretty much right away. It was just amplified that much more around him. And it definitely got him into some trouble, yeah, I mean, it was great to see. It's cool to see, like, the back and forth, like the modern day context, the previous context, and how it all feeds into each other. One thing I wanted to say before I forget is previously, in the '92 finals, the Shrug. We all know the Shrug that Jordan had in the finals. I didn't realize that he was looking at Magic Johnson when he was doing that. That was really cool for me to learn that, like, that was directed toward Magic Johnson, and the camera that's looking at him is the NBC camera. What's fascinating to me 10, 15, 20 years later, whatever, is like all the Jordan highlights that we know, the switching hands in the air, the shrug, the thing more. Like, that stuff happened in the NBA Finals. It happened on the highest level. The 63 in the Garden was a playoff game. I mean, he's not just doing this on, like, a random Tuesday night in November. Like, this is, like, literally the whole world is watching this, and he's playing his best. So, like, it just adds to the legend that, like, it is fascinating that they said, like, he figured out how to control the game. He knew he was the best player. Everybody knew he was the best player. But he figured out how to win games. And so he became a leader in '92 and '93 and then the rest of the years. Other than that, he was just balling out,
So when you were talking about the shrug, I thought you were talking about the security guard shrug, because to be honest, that might have been the best shrug I saw yesterday.
Oh, that was great. That was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because I remember when we talked about David Blaine doing the magic tricks on some of these athletes a couple weeks ago for the ABC special that he had, and he gave Jordan a deck of cards to shuffle it, and Jordan told him, he's like, "Oh, I didn't actually shuffle it. I just wanted you to think that I shuffled it." It's like he just has this competitive nature about him that he can't get enough of,
Yeah. Which I love in the interview that they showed, the segment they showed, they're like, "Do you have a gambling problem?" He's like, "No, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competitiveness problem." I was like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, the guy just wanted to win at all costs, at any cost. It didn't matter. And like, you also, like, with the shrug that you mentioned, like, I think it's cool. He was shrugging and at Magic, because Magic had made the mistake of comparing him to Clyde Drexler.
It wasn't Magic. It was someone else.
No, yeah, but he had that connection with Magic that he could be like, "Hey, man, I can't believe this."
No, I thought Magic was the one who made that statement.
No.
That's why he's looking at him.
No, it wasn't Magic, but Magic was part of the group, like
the
discussion. They were the discussion. Magic was on, like, the NBC team, and they were comparing Clyde to Jordan. And then then Magic and Jordan were playing cards, and Jordan was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna bring it," and he brought it.
Which is, it's still fascinating to say that he dominated, and like you see that, you hear that, and then you think about what Kobe's done and how Kobe went about his business, and it's like the exact same way.
Yeah.
Like, and it was great. I mean, we have this debate all the time: Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. And I think in the interview yesterday, Kobe set the record straight. Like, there would be no Kobe Bryant without Michael Jordan. So I think by default, if when that happens, then you have to say Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time.
So I'm wondering if LeBron's in this documentary at all.
I would think so. At some point, I would think he has to be because he wears the number 23, right? Because of Jordan. We know that is such a big influence on him. And you talk about like the crossover potential. I mean, Jordan went to Nike, and that story was really cool too about how he got signed to Nike, and he pretty much walked in not wanting to be with them and walked out, and his life was made off shoe deals. So I would think LeBron is coming. I mean, it took them 4 episodes to bring in Kobe. It took them, 3 episodes to bring in Dennis Rodman. So, like, I mean, I think slowly but surely, things are coming together, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'd be to see like how LeBron ties into all of this, even though he joined much later.
So, real quick before I forget, and I'm going to go back to the very beginning of our show here when I talk about Charles Harris and bringing that up in terms of the Last Dance and a character who's in there. We said that Charles Harris was a first-round pick, didn't play well. Ahmad Rashad was actually an NFL Pro Bowler. I didn't really know that until this morning. But Ahmad Rashad made it to 4 Pro Bowls, and he was the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. I'll pull up the year, but I have this verified. And so Ahmad Rashad went to the St. Louis Cardinals with the 4th overall pick in the 1972 NFL draft. Wow. And he played there for 2 years, went to Buffalo, and then he played 7 seasons in Minnesota and made the Pro Bowl 4 times and ended his career with 44 touchdowns, 6,831 receiving yards, and 495 receptions. So I'm not saying that Charles Harris is the next Ahmad Rashad, bouncing around and becoming a Pro Bowler later on, but I'm hoping. But I am a big Ahmad Rashad fan, and it was really cool to learn that about him and to see that the relationship that they had, that he had with Michael Jordan, like personally as friends, I thought was great.
100%. Any other final thoughts on The Last Dance? Asif, I see you.
Sorry, yeah. The one last thing I want to say, we talked about the Dream Team. I thought it was great when they were in the hotel lobby and speaking, and Ahmad Rashad asked Jordan, like, hey, man, last shot of the game, who's going to take it? And Jordan said, me. Like, nobody else but me is taking that shot. And at that point, too, like right before that in the documentary, they talked about, like, Jordan was the alpha of all alphas. And it was the practice right before that happened, I think, where he just kind of dominated. And he, Magic and Charles Barkley were talking trash, and he just lit him up in that practice. And then he's like, after that, they knew that, like, Michael Jordan is the king. Question I have that I want to propose is, like, next week on The Last Dance, they're going to talk about Birmingham and Jordan going to play baseball. And it takes like 1.5 years to 2 years off to do that, whatever. Is Jordan leaving the game the equivalent of maybe LeBron going to Miami or things of that nature, in the sense of, hey, man, I've done everything I can here. I need to go do something else. And this could be a rhetorical question. We don't necessarily need to have an answer for it right now. I think we'll know by next week. We'll have a better idea. But then my other thought to that too is, was it fair for Jordan to walk away after his 3rd championship, the one in '93 when they beat the Suns? Because next week is when he goes into retirement after that. So was it fair for him to walk again?
Sorry, I was just saying spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Finish your thought, though. Sorry. Finish your thought.
Yeah, that was it.
Well, I'm going to answer your rhetorical question. One, I think it is fair for him to retire. I mean, and anyone has the right to retire when they want. They don't owe anything. And at that point, he brought 3 championships to Chicago that never happened before. And he was already deemed probably the best basketball player of all time. So him retiring in '93 or when he did, I mean, it'd been cool if he didn't. But the fact that he did, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And what was the other thing you were saying? Is it the equivalent to LeBron going to Miami? I don't think so. because I still picture LeBron going to Miami as him chasing a ring when Jordan already had 3 rings and then he retired. And then, he came back, of course, but like, it was basically like load management, if you want to think about it, because Jordan had played so many games from 84 all the way to 93.
Yeah.
Then he took a
Which is
year and a half
technically
off.
9 years, but really it's probably like 10, 11 because he had the Olympics in there too.
And he had 2 Olympics because he had his Olympics his rookie year, Olympics in 92, and he had playoffs every year. Remember, he never missed a playoff except for his Wizards years. So
they said that, sorry, just to add to your point, between 84 and 93 on SportsCenter last night, they said that Michael Jordan played 19,000 minutes. 19,000 minutes.
So what I equate it to is, remember when LeBron used to take like little mini vacations in the middle of the season for like a week? Yeah. If you would have that for every year that LeBron did that and added how many games Jordan missed, it might be equivalent. I mean, Jordan took off, a season and a half?
Yeah, I think so. Because he came back in March of that second year,
Yeah, approximately a season and a half. I mean, if you put load management between his entire season, let's start 86 on, because 85 he was on load management for his broken foot. So 86 on, if you put him on load management, that's probably equivalent to the amount of games he missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thought. I think, yeah, now they go for it, yeah.
I also I think it's important to put into factor that his dad had passed away right before he had retired and decided to switch as well. And so I think that played a huge role. And now that I see the context behind all of the gambling scandal had come out, him going out the night before the second game in the NBA Finals, all of the stress and tension that came with that, plus then his father passing away. I think when you look at the third championship after it, you saw Jordan was relieved, and at the end he was just he kept saying I'm just tired. I was physically, but even more than that, I was mentally drained. And then you have a few months later, his dad passes away. And then I think he just needed to step away from basketball to clear his head.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with any of it. I mean, I think it's totally valid, but it was just a thought that I had too, and it's going to be really interesting to see. I also wondered too, will we talk about Jordan the same way had he not come back to win 3 more championships, and or would we talk about him the same way? Because I've always thought it was crazy ironic that the 2 years that Jordan didn't make it to the finals in 94 and 95, the Houston Rockets won the finals. And in 1984, the Rockets drafted Hakeem Olajuwon #1 overall, and Michael Jordan went 3rd overall in that draft. So they never even got to play each other head-to-head in the championship series, which is crazy because it's just how fortunate for Houston that they didn't have to play Michael Jordan and the Bulls, or maybe how lucky for the Bulls because they went down to the wire against Indiana. They went down to the wire against New York, and then they went to Game 6 against Phoenix that last year. I mean, so they were close to being beat. And I'm not saying he walked away because they were close to being beat. I mean, he'd done it. He'd won. He said, I'm packing 1 suit for this game out west, and we're going there. We're winning, and we're coming back. But, I think, the legend is not finished yet, that's the really amazing part, because nobody knew he was going to come back and win 3 more after 93.
Yeah, we're only halfway through his story.
Right. And then the last thing I'll say, too, is, so spoiler alert, we all know the Bulls win 98, whatever.
God damn it.
Hey, man, I'm just saying. But then
at least he said spoiler alert this time.
Yeah.
Right. But I believe that the team that won after the Bulls were done, and the Bulls broke up that final season, I believe it was Greg Popovich's Spurs.
I think you're right.
Knicks. So, man, I would have loved to see Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan go head-to-head with Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, the Spurs, because we were literally 1 year, 1.5 years away from the power shift in the NBA to what I think we grew up with knowing like this. The Spurs winning the NBA championship was the first finals I recall watching as like somewhat of a young adult.
Oh, as a young adult, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember watching this '98 finals like live.
I remember that one. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we were 9, so
Yeah.
Like I remember the shot and like the flu game, like briefly, but like as far as like, oh, this is the NBA finals and this is how a season works, and I think it was the first time I saw somebody that wasn't the Bulls playing, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just like automatically Bulls, like teams actually earned it and played to this point, you know.
Fair assumption.
So yeah, halfway through, like you said, now there's crazy.
I'm excited. In other news, this is great news for any of us that have been really, really missing sports, which I know is all of us. Korean baseball is coming back. Korean baseball is back. We will send out a link on everything you need to know about Korean baseball, power rankings, key storylines.
I already have my team.
What's your team, Nab?
The Doosan Bears.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Isn't one of these teams the Dinos, like the first team that's playing? Isn't it like the Dinos or something like that?
That's the NC Dinos. You are correct. They're number 6.
I like that.
Okay. Where are the Bears ranked in the bill?
Number 3 on the power ranking, number 1 in my hearts.
Okay, there you go.
I have multiple hearts.
So for anyone who's been missing sports and is planning on following Korean baseball because there's nothing else to watch, let us know what team you're rooting for and why you're rooting for them. We will all come up with our own favorite teams as well. Asif, thoughts?
Two things. One about the
Samsung Lions fan.
Yeah, is that a team?
Samsung Lions.
Yeah, I'm team iPhone, baby. No Lions for me. It's team iPhone. But get out of here with that mess. That's actually a good segue. 2 things I want to mention real quick because we cannot mention 98 Bulls. Last game, Bulls Hawks is in Atlanta. Or not the last game, but the last time they played in Atlanta was at the Georgia Dome.
Yeah.
And when I heard the Outcast come on, I lost it. It pumped me up. It gave me new life. So it was really cool to see Michael Jordan pretty much sold out the Georgia Dome. 60,000 seats, like literally by himself. That was it, you know. It was so great to see that footage that they had it, and that was really awesome. But then the thing I want to say about the Korean Baseball League is when you guys wake up to start your fasting, the games will be on. So, because they're on South Korea time, so these games are on like 1 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Starting tomorrow or later tonight, whatever. Nice. So you guys will have something to watch while you guys are cooking up some eggs or whatever.
Fair enough. Sweet. We're all excited for that. In other news, rest in peace, Don Shula passed away this week. The one and great coach of the Miami Dolphins, led them to some of the greatest seasons they've ever had. And
only perfect season.
Yep, the only ever perfect season. And then in other NFL news, the schedule is to be released on Thursday. So next week we will be talking NFL schedule. I wonder if the schedule release takes into account any of the COVID-19 stuff, or are they planning on regular schedule opening as it would normal season?
So another Nabs bold prediction. I feel like most of the divisional games are going to be later in the season in case they have to start the season later. So probably the first week might be all NFC teams playing AFC teams because that matters the least. And then, non-divisional games. And then near the end of the season, they'll have more divisional matchups just because that's what matters the most for playoff purposes.
So you're saying they're contingency planning for hopefully not, but potentially a 9-game season, like the Don Shula days, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, if they have to cancel, I don't even know if the Bears are playing the Steelers, but let's say Bears versus Steelers, that won't really impact as much as having to cancel Bears versus Packers.
Of course, right.
All right, but we're gonna have a prediction. We haven't had a prediction in a while. So Bears are playing the Falcons next year. Well, this year. So what month are the Bears going to play the Falcons?
Oh,
That's a prediction.
I'm gonna go. Now there seems like he's thinking about it, heavy in thought. I'm just gonna go ahead and take October on that.
All right. It's in Atlanta.
I'm thinking November.
All right. Well, I can't say December because that goes against my theory. So September it
That's
is.
something I would do. Yeah. Oh yeah. We got September, October, November. Now, a prediction from you: Are we gonna have fans in the games this year? Fans in the stands or no?
Not to start. Not to start.
No? Yeah. Okay. Let's hope. I mean, as long as I can watch on TV, man, I'll take it. I'll watch Korean baseball if that's all I got. I'm gonna do it. You know.
Do you think they're gonna have K-pop playing while Korean baseball is playing as well?
It's actually I agree. I think they probably will. But what's fascinating is like the NBA became a global sport, basketball became a global sport, and the NBA went global because of the Dream Team, right?
Yep.
Because Michael Jordan and the Stars went out and showed the world what American basketball is all about. I mean, I wonder too, are we going to have like a small following of Korean baseball teams here because it's all we have now? Like the Rockets are a big deal in China because of Yao Ming. So like, I wonder if now we're going to have a small influence of like Korean baseball, like jerseys and apparel, like normal.
Dude,
like you see
Doosan Bears fan since day one.
whatever. What?
Doosan Bears since day one.
Literally since day one.
And
Hey, the podcast can cover it.
yeah, let's do it. And on that note, I think this is a wonderful place to wrap it up. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bears, and Brews. Let us know what you're drinking this month or any thoughts on our kombucha and our cold brew coffee. Also, Canada Dry. I'll rep it as well. Let us know what Korean baseball teams you're following, if you are following any. Thoughts on that? Thank you for everyone who voted on making Asif drink kombucha today. If you watched the YouTube video, your vote led to some really awesome being made by Asif as he drinks. Thank you for that. Have a good night. Stay safe.